Hi, my name is Brianna, and I'm going to talk about my MEPS experience. So, I am trying to be enlisted in the Navy.
Who y'all, baby?
And I went up to MEPS on November 18th and November 19th of 2020. So, I got to experience a little bit of the COVID situation going on. MEPS Day 1 with the COVID experience. On November 18th, that was the day that I was officially going up to MEPS. My recruiter picked me up from my house, and he just told me that I needed like my ID and my social security, and I also had to bring W-2s because I had like a name verification that I had going on. The closest MEPS to me was MEPS Houston, and so that's all the way in downtown Houston. So he picked me and another guy up from our station, and he took us up to MEPS in Houston. And the first thing that we went through was the security scanner. So they made us take like our belts off and like our watches off and stuff like that. We had to put them in a tub, and basically they just put them through a scanner, and then they give you the body scan, and then to make sure you don't have like any weapons or things like that. And then you're able to go through. Technically, this day was whenever we had like our interview. I didn't know it was actually an interview. They were still having problems with my paperwork when I went through because they were just trying to make sure that everything matched up, and transcripts need to be stamped and all of that, so we were still having trouble going through with that. So the interview, basically, the recruiters at MEPS, there's going to be a person that will come by and basically you just sit down in a room with them, and they go over what your paperwork is and to make sure that everything looks right and your answers match up to what they need to be. So if nothing was a yes before, don't make it into a yes, don't lie, and just make sure that everything checks out. So whenever you go up the next day, everything is right. So this was also the time where we would take our ASVAB, but both me and the other guy that I went with, we both didn't have to take our ASVABs. We just kept the ASVAB that we took before. I took mine in high school. I took it my junior year of high school, and so basically I didn't have to take a verification exam. That was only if you took the PICAT. We basically just skipped that part. And so after our interview and my paperwork was cleared, we got to drive over to the hotel, which was like 30 minutes away.
It felt like 30 minutes away.
We went and we checked into the hotel, and at the hotel, they just make you like write your name on a sheet and your recruiter's name and your recruiter's phone number. I accidentally wrote down my phone number, and so I had to call my recruiter. Didn't know what to do, but I just had to go and I just changed and put his number on there. After you check in at the hotel, you get like a meal ticket, and this was all specific to the MEPS I went to, but they gave us a meal ticket, and they said that dinner was going to be served from around 5 to like 8ish, and since COVID, they weren't allowing all of us to meet downstairs to get meals together. They would just prepackage it, and then the meal ticket, you just picked what you wanted, like what entree, what drink, and then you wrote down the time that you wanted to get picked up. You just had to be down there in the lunchroom, in the cafeteria, the restaurant at the time that you put on your slip. So I put mine for like 7ish because I thought like later in the day I'd be hungry. For that, we basically just like chilled in like the little lounge area room that they had downstairs. That was pretty cool. There was like a bunch of TVs and like games and like video games and stuff like that. Me and the guy that I went up with, I didn't know anything really about going up to MEPS, so I was still kind of nervous. And so he was basically just like explaining everything as best as he could, because he was a boy and I'm a girl, so it was a little different. So he was basically just explaining to me how everything was going to go, just trying to make me feel like at ease. So we like chilled there for like an hour. We got there like around 4, and so we had a long time until like I picked my lunch. So I just went up to the room and like I was just chilling and I was watching TV, and I was calling my parents to like let them know what was going on and that I was okay. And I was like getting everything settled in my room, and I basically just watched TV until it was time to pick up dinner. And so I went downstairs and like I gave them my name and I picked up dinner. I went upstairs and I ate. We had like a brief at 8:30, and so basically like all the people that were going down to MEPS the next morning, we all went down into the lounge room at 8:30, and we got a brief on like the rules of the hotel, what to do, what not to do, and then what to expect at the day at MEPS tomorrow. Lights out were at 10, I had to call like our NC1 because just giving me pointers like for the next day whenever they ask you stuff about your paperwork, like be truthful, just make sure that everything you say, you know, matches your paperwork and like you're not hiding anything. And if you are hiding anything, to make sure to just get it out now, because it's better to tell them in advance rather than try and get the penalties later. I went to bed like at like 10:30, 11 because I was so scared of being super sleepy the next day. And so once lights went out, like I was already out. And lights out just means that you just go and sit in your hotel room. Some of the kids are playing volleyball until lights out, because there was like a pool and like there was like volleyball nets, like beach volleyball and stuff like that. So some of them were like outside. I just chose to stay in my room because we had to wake up at like 3 the next morning. I put my alarm for 3:20 because I was so scared of like oversleeping.
MEPS day 2, baby.
And so like I woke up. 3:30 was like our wake up call, but they really didn't like come and check our rooms. So please like set an alarm because I don't think they're gonna come and wake you guys up. So 4 o'clock was our like latest like checkout time for the hotel. And so you would just bring like your card and stuff that you used to get into the hotel room. They would check you out, and then 4 a.m. was like the latest to come down. So like I went down at like 3:50ish, and then 4 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. was breakfast, and the breakfast was okay. It wasn't really that bad. A lot of people were saying it was pretty bad. It wasn't that bad. It was like eggs and potatoes and stuff. It was pretty good. And so we ate breakfast until 4:30. 4:30 was last call, and basically they made us like line up in the hallway, and they made us all line against the right side of the hallway, and they were just calling out names to make sure you were there. We were supposed to leave at 4:45. That's what the itinerary said, but we had one person that was like MIA, and then we had like 2 or 3 guys that were like still up in their rooms, and so like they missed breakfast, so that was pretty bad. And so we ended up leaving at like 4:50ish in the morning, and so our bus drivers kind of like hauled butt to MEPS, and so we got there like 5ish in the morning. And basically the commander had us stand like outside of MEPS, and then they put like the girls in one line, and then they put the boys in the other line, and then they put people that were shipping out in the front of the line, and then everybody else towards the back. There was really no order besides that. And so the commander, he gave us like ground rules, like no weapons. We had to take off like our belts and our watches again to go through the scanner, put your phone in your bag and make sure it's like all the way off. He also said that like there was nothing in the pockets, like girls had one earring, like one earring hole was like allowed, but no other piercings, and then guys, no piercings at all. And so basically after that, we just went through the security scanner. While we were waiting in line to go through the security scanner, they were making us fill out like our COVID forms. So it was just like the standard COVID forms of like, do you have
nausea, heartburn, indigestion,
diarrhea, shortness of breath? Have you ever been in contact with somebody with COVID? Have you ever had exposure to COVID? Things like that. And then the release for your medical records that you were like consenting to for them to have a physical screening of you. They gave you like a temperature check and stuff, and then you went through the scanner. After you went through the scanner, like they gave you back your bag and stuff. We took an elevator up to the highest floor, and that was where the liaisons are. So basically, like when you go up there, you check in to MEPS. You just get like your ticket, and then they give you the ticket to put on your bag, and so you just strap it onto your bag, and then you keep the other half with you. So like when you go and get your bag, like you remember which bag is yours. And so they made us put all of our bags and all of our phones into this one separate room, and they had it pretty much closed for the rest of the day. So you weren't allowed to like have your phone on you, and you weren't allowed to have basically anything else other than yourself and maybe a jacket. And then you took your packet with your paperwork, your medical paperwork, to your liaison. And so you had to walk down a hallway, and then like Air Force goes to Air Force, Coast Guard goes to Coast Guard, Navy goes to Navy, and Air Force to Air Force, and Marines to Marines. You take your papers to your liaison, and basically he just goes over with like the last bit of paperwork you need to do, and he makes you like sign certain places, and then you get a sticker that has like your name, and then what branch, and then like what you're getting done. So like some say like DP or like physical, or like ASVAB and physical and stuff like that. So you just wear it, and they said to wear it on like your outermost clothing. So like if you have a jacket, put it on top of your jacket. If you're wearing just like a shirt, like just put it on your shirt, on the right side, on the right side. After that, you go to the medical floor. So we had to go downstairs to the medical floor on the second floor, and you also have to check in there, and they check you in with your fingerprinting. So they were saying that if you took your ASVAB the first day, you already had your fingerprint in the system, and so you want to use the same fingerprint that you used whenever you took your ASVAB when they first checked you in. And if you were using like a fingerprinting to sign your paperwork electronically, you want to use the same fingerprint. Or if not, they would just fingerprint you there. I had to be fingerprinted there, so basically they just make you put like your finger on there. So they do like your right index finger, and then whenever you sign stuff, you'll use your right fingerprint, and that's they send your fingerprints to the FBI, and so if anything happens, they know who you are. After fingerprinting, we went into like this big room, and it had like all these different like stations, and so you would check in to the medical part of the floor again, and then so it was somebody that was like checking off your paperwork, and so you handed it off to the doctor, and then he gave it back to you, and then we basically did like musical chairs, and like we just like kept going through each station. And so first they did your blood pressure, and so you sit there in the chair and like they do your blood pressure on your arm, and then after that second station was hearing, and so in hearing I believe it was like 6 people at a time, and so you would go in and they make you wear like these earphones, and then you have like a little clicker, and so what you do is you like listen to the beeps, and there's like some high tones and then some low tones, and you basically just click once whenever you hear a beep. If you don't hear a beep, don't click anything, and then the machine just like stops whenever it's done. So like if you just don't hear any more clicking, then that means you're pretty much done. And so the doctor that was giving the hearing testing, he just said to sit quietly and don't disturb anybody else. Like try to still be really calm and really quiet so that other people, because it is self-paced, so some people might finish before you might finish before somebody else, or you might be the last person finishing. So they just had to keep it quiet so everybody else can still do their best and hear as well, because they're really, really, really hard to hear, and so you really have to concentrate. So then after that, like he writes down on your medical form like how you did, and then after that, it was kind of like already a little bit later in the day. It was like 7, actually I think it was like 8 o'clock. They put us all into like the conference room, and basically that was like our medical briefing. And so we got like our rules from the commander and stuff like that, of like how he runs the MEPS, and goes through briefly like what's going to go on, like some kids that haven't done their interview yet, your interview and like how that's going to go, your job pick, how your physical is going to go. Basically, like if something goes wrong, how you're able to fix it. So if you request to have like 2 people in your physical, so this day there were no female doctors, so all the girls were having their physicals done from a male doctor because there were no female doctors. And so we had both the male doctor and a female nurse in there, so that we had 2 parties. And so if it was just female, you can maybe request another female to be in there, or if it was male and you wanted another male to be in there just in case, you were able to ask for that whenever the time came for your physical to be done. So just like what was happening, like you're going to get your blood drawn and stuff like that, and basically just like the lays of the land, and like no weapons, no looking at nasty things on your phone whenever you're at MEPS, and like the consequences for doing something wrong at MEPS. It was pretty self-explanatory. One of the doctors at MEPS, he gave basically like our final med read, where we were filling out some of the documents in like your medical paperwork, to just make sure that you're going over them to make sure that everything is right, because once you left the medical briefing, if anything was wrong, they would basically kind of count it against you, and like you would kind of get in trouble. The reason for that is just to make sure that you have everything you need, and that there's nothing else that needs to be signed or re-signed, or you need to change something. Like mine, I got my name changed, so I was having 2 last names, and so some of the documents had 1 last name, some had one over the other, and some just didn't have both, so I had to keep changing it and put both on there to make sure everything was consistent. one girl that was there, her paperwork was just plain out like wrong, like dates were wrong, her date of birth was wrong, social security was wrong, and so she had to like go and refix all of her forms. So it's very important that you make sure to check. Whether you think it's been triple checked, quadruple checked, or whatever, just make sure that everything is fixed. After a med briefing, the doctor, he took us out into the hallway, and he was like in like full COVID gear, and we did a breathalyzer test. So he gave us all these little tubes in like a plastic bag. Whenever we came up, we like put our tubes into the breathalyzer gun, and then you just blew into it, and then it would test like your alcohol content. And after that, like he would get like an instant like, yes, you're good, or no, like you're not good. And so after that, like they would write it on medical paperwork, and then you would go on to the next part. Like we split into boys and girls, and so the boys went into one room, and then the girls went in the other room. So the girls, they went to physical exam room, and I went first. And so the doctor, he basically just like checked over all my documents, and he was just like asking me questions. He like checked my ears real quick, and then he didn't need to check my eyes because they were already giving us an eye exam. So he just said, just wanted to like check my ears to make sure everything was okay. So if your ears aren't clean, clean your ears. And then he also did like a check on like my thyroids, like on my neck. And so like he was like pushing on my neck and like to make sure like everything was where it's supposed to be and works okay. And then after that, there were only like 7 girls. So we were basically just sitting all together, and like we would go through pretty much each station we went together. So next, after like all the girls were done reading over the documents, like we went to pee in the cup. For us, like the nurse was in there like watching us pee, but like there was like a door, and so the door is basically like cracked open, and so she was able to just like see you like a little bit. And so they had water there, like if you needed to go pee. The rule was like when you were told to pee, you need to go pee, because you could be potentially disqualified if you didn't go pee. Thank God all the girls were able to go pee, so none of us had to be DQ'd off of that. You know, we just peed in the cup, and then like you clean the cup, and then they give you like a pregnancy test on the spot, and then they just like section it off, and then like they keep your pee there. And then she like writes like yes or no for the pregnancy test, and then we went back to stations. And so next we had I did my blood draw. And so basically they just made us sit in a chair, and then they put like a wrap around to like clench your muscle up. And the lady was really good at it that did my blood draw. It's a really, really tiny little vial. It's not that much blood, so it really didn't take long. There was one girl that did pass out during the blood draw. She just passed out, and she just fainted. So just make sure like you're drinking a lot of water, make sure that you eat, because you could pass out. But everybody was super calm about it, and everybody was like trying to help, and she was okay. She just didn't realize it. After your blood was drawn, to check for HIV and like STDs and stuff like that, I went to take my eye test and the depth perception. With my eyes, I went, and since I wear glasses, like I had to go to like a different eye test. The doctor did is that he made me sit in front of the machine where like I put like a chin on the resting stand, and basically what he did was he was like checking my prescription in my glasses, and he took that prescription and he put it into another machine, and it's like the standard like the sign that has like the E and all the numbers and letters on it. And so he was making me read on there without my glasses on, so I couldn't see anything, and I tried reading like the second to top of the line, and I couldn't get it. And like I kept telling him like I can't see anything, and he was like, okay, well you know, try it. And basically like egging me on like, okay, keep trying, like, you know, like you have to see something. And I was like, I couldn't see anything. And so when you look into it, it's like some are like on top, and then he made you look like down here. Did like one eye and one eye, and then one eye and one eye. And then so after that, I did my colorblind test. And so basically it's just a little book, and they just flip through the book and they tell you to tell them what numbers you see. After the colorblind test, then we did depth perception. So since I wear glasses, I had to put like their depth perception glasses over my regular glasses, which was pretty hard. And then it's like 12 groups of circles. There's 3 circles. And my doctor, he told us to say like left, middle, right. and you just had to tell him which circle looks the closest to you. I only got to like number 3, and I just couldn't tell them apart, and I don't think I passed my depth perception test because the doctor was looking at me kind of funny. Yeah, I didn't do good. So just tell them honestly which one you think, and if not, just tell them that, and so you could just move on. So I just moved on after that. I went back to the girls only room for height and weight, and so we did have to take our clothes off for that. We were just like in bra and underwear. I originally thought like my height was 5'4" because on my driver's license I'm 5'4", but she weighed me first and I was 152.8. Then she like took my height, and then I was 5'3". For 5'4", like your max weight is 156. So like I tried getting down, and so I was like, oh okay, like I'm like 153, like I'll be fine. Well, then I ended up being max of 152, and so I was zero point 0.8 over, and so I had to be taped. She was like, oh, like, you know, I'm sorry, a little overweight, like I have to get you taped, because she said that they round up 1, and so technically I was 153 even though I was 152.8. And she had to tape me, and so basically she just took like where my hip bone is, and then she took a measuring tape, and then she went around my hip bone, and I did pass tape, so then that was good. They gave us like a little like hospital gown thing, and then after we got taped, we waited for all the girls to finish getting their height and weight, and then we went into the big room for exercises. And so we did a lot of exercises, and we did our exercises in our bra and underwear. We did a lot, like arm circles, brought like our hands to our shoulders, so like they made us go up, and then we had to like stop like that. We did like our thumbs from head to down, and then you had to like do like arm extensions. We did like this, where like you put your hands at eye level, and then you like bring them up, and then you bring them down, and did like wrist movements. So the move was just and then like up and down, and then side to side. We did the finger counting. Our nurse made it count it out loud, so it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we just kept doing that until she told us to stop. We did calf raises. We actually did like regular old squats, and so we were just like squatting. We had to hold in a low squat. We of course did the duck walk. We did the duck walk across the room and then back. We did like a squat, and then you had to sit from your squat all the way down, and then you had to like pop up on your knees, and both of your knees have to hit at the same time. And then after that, from our knees, without your hands touching the floor, you had to crawl all the way back up to standing. We did like some leg kicks for like your foot extension, rolling your ankles. We did scoliosis check. So basically you just bend over and he just like rubs on your spine to make sure you don't have scoliosis. We like walked fast across the room to hear your heels thump on the ground. And then we did like walking on our heels and then walking on our toes. And then we sat in the room and we waited to get our down there check. Basically, the doctor just checks to make sure that you're a girl, make sure nothing's wrong, and then that's it. He just made me get on top of the table, and he was like check for like breast cancer and like signs of breast cancer. So he was like feeling up on your breasts. He was like touching your stomach to make sure nothing was wrong with your abdomen, and then he made us like put our legs up and then spread and then close them. And so after we got changed and we were sent to go see our liaisons. This is where I found out that I was temporarily DQ'd because I didn't think I did well on my eye exam. I had to go see the head medical doctor at MEPS. He was really nice. We sat down and went over my paperwork, and he was like, oh, okay, everything else is good, and he was just checking things off. He told me that my eyes were too high of cylinders. I'm like a -5 for my eye prescription. He was like, I need you to come back to MEPS and see a specialist. And he's like, go up and see your liaison. And I was like, oh, okay. So I went up to go see my liaison. Basically, she said that I was done for the day and I wasn't going to get to pick a job or swear in because I needed to come back for an eye consult and get an eye waiver because my eyes were too high of cylinders. I have to wait in order to get a date to go back up. After that, I had to just go back to the room where we put our bags down at the beginning, I got my phone out of my bag because I was just allowed to get my phone. And so my recruiter came and picked me up, or until after like I checked out. And so I called my recruiter and like I told him that, you know, I was ready to go and I wasn't going to swear in. And he tried to kind of like push me through, and he tried to like call whoever he knew at MEPS to basically push me through, and, you know, so I could pick a job and get sworn in. But weren't able to get me through, and so I really did have to come back and get an eye consult. I kind of just sat there and I waited for the other guy that came up with me. Shout out to Vinny. His day went super great. He got to swear in, and so that was really fun. And so like I got to like ask him like how was the swear in ceremony, and he was super excited. And so I hope that I can swear in someday too. So after he swore in, we kind of just like waited around because it was like barely lunchtime. It was like noon. And so they were serving lunch until 1, and then by the time we like finished, we were waiting downstairs in the Navy recruiter's office there at MEPS. And so we were just sitting on the couch watching TV until my recruiter came and picked us up. That's pretty much it for my experience at MEPS. Hopefully I get to go back. I have to go back at least 2 more times because I need to go get an eye waiver, and it's just going to be 1 day there at MEPS to see their eye specialist, and then after that I would come back again to pick a job and swear in if I'm cleared. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks.
But hopefully this isn't a permanent DQ. This is a temporary DQ.
I slip into the ocean.